Hey y'all, what's up? My name's Angela, and today I have a few reviews of recent ARCs that I've read. So ARCs are advanced reader copies, and publishers will send these copies of books before they're released to different readers to get reviews and to get hype about these books. And these are some recent ones that have been released in the months of February and March. The first book is Love is for Losers by Vibeke Brugman. This book was released on February 23rd, and it follows our main character, Phoebe, who is a 15-year-old girl who learns to traverse rocky friendships, distant parental figures, and a newfound romance. So this is a YA with a queer relationship at its center, and the tone very much reminds me of a mix between The Princess Diaries by Meg Cabot and Angus Thongs of Perfect Snogging. It's very light, very informal, casual, and though our main character is in high school, it does tend to read a bit younger, so I wouldn't necessarily recommend it for middle school students just because there are talks of kind of explicit topics about sex and sexuality, but the tone does feel very young. This was a really refreshing and fun book to read, and the way it's formatted almost feels kind of slice of life-ish. It's really easy to pick back up. I think throughout the book you really empathize a lot with this, young girl going through these different growing pains, and I think she tackles a lot of different parts of adolescence and growing up, especially with friendships, friends getting into relationships, what is relationship and what does love mean to a teenager. And also, it talks a lot about family too. The kind of, relationships that you form with your parents are really different as teenagers from when you're a child. So she has to kind of work through that rather rocky part of her life. While I enjoyed how the topics of friendship and love were approached in this book and how it kind of wrapped up, I didn't quite get that feeling as much with the parental relationships. I did feel that the tension and the conflict was there, but it wasn't explored as thoroughly as I would have liked. Overall, this was really fun, cute, casual read, and I gave it 4 stars. The next book is Milk Fed by Melissa Broder. This book was released on February 2nd, and it follows our main character, Rachel, whose daily life is basically consumed by her eating disorder. Under instruction from her therapist, she begins this detox of all the harmful influences from her life, and very unexpectedly, she meets a woman named Miriam who completely reshapes Rachel's journey. This is the same author who wrote The Pisces, another book that I was really looking forward to reading, and it's still really high on my TBR. This book is not for everyone, both in terms of the writing style and especially in terms of the topic. I think that it can come across as very raw. The imageries of Rachel's thoughts and towards herself and towards other people are quite strong and sometimes very disturbing. The sense of hunger in every sense of the word, both like the physical hunger as well as like the mental hunger for people, for connection, for that kind of human connection is just so visceral at times that it can be really overwhelming. This book not only tries to tackle Rachel's eating disorder, but it also tries to tackle this gap that Rachel feels with her religion. So Rachel's family practices Reform Judaism, and Rachel's kind of distanced herself from her family's religion. But Miriam's family practices Orthodox Judaism, and that's a really big part of her life and her family's life. And so you really kind of see these two women and how their family lives kind of mirror each other. There's connections and there's also huge differences. I really like these types of stories where we have a main character's thoughts completely unfiltered, really all the gross, disturbing, vivid imagery of just a person's unconscious thoughts kind of just streaming through in prose. I really like this type of book, and it reminds me kind of in similar vein to My Year of Rest and Relaxation by Otessa Moshfegh, and maybe even a little bit like Mona Awad, especially since the topics of this book are very similar to the topics of 13 Ways of Looking at a Fat Girl by Mona Awad. While Rachel's thought process and her views were really interesting, I can't say how accurate, how good, harmful her attitudes were. I just don't have the experience to say that, but I do think that the way that the book was written was really captivating. I couldn't stop reading it. There was just something so interesting about having a character who has so many human unlikability, but also this rawness that makes her all the more human. I ended up giving this book 5 stars, and I really think I probably need to go back and reread it. I enjoyed reading it so much, but there's just a lot of it that's so layered and nuanced. I need to revisit this book sometime in the future. And the last book in this review is Every Last Fear by Alex Finlay. This book was released on March 2nd, and it follows the Pine family. So the Pine family is found dead on vacation in Mexico, and they are survived by their 2 sons. Danny Pine is in prison for murdering his high school girlfriend, and Matt Pine is just a regular university student trying to stay out of the spotlight of his brother's murder. Though this case on the surface seems like a really horrendous accident, evidence starts coming up that suggests that there might be something darker and more purposeful at hand. This book was definitely interesting. It follows several different point of views, even from the point of views of the deceased members of the Pine family before. This book sets up this narrative where you know exactly what's happened, you know the results of this case, but you're taking evidence from the past and the present and building them up kind of layer by layer to build up your understanding of what is actually the truth. I don't think the plot was really groundbreaking. I saw the twists coming at the end. What I did like about this was the way the author really explored this idea of this unreliable narrator and also the effects that fame has on these like true crime cases. You know, like most people, I also enjoy watching like true crime documentaries and true crime miniseries, and this book at its center really focuses on how though true crime is really entertaining for the audience, there are real people behind these stories, and these families are forever affected by this publicity and the scrutiny of these, you know, what do you call them, armchair detectives who always give their 2 cents about who is guilty and who is not. This book feels less like a thriller and more on the side of mystery suspense. I feel like a lot of it was really having all these different puzzle pieces and trying to piece them together, like both for the reader and for the characters in the book. For some reason, the writing style reminded me a little bit of The Whisper Man by Alex North, kind of in that same where you have the family and you also have this police procedural aspect, and all these like pieces of evidence start getting put together to try to make the bigger picture of the actual crime and what happened. Overall, it was a good time, and I gave this book 4 stars. So those were some quick reviews of recent releases. Please let me know in the comments if you read these and what you've thought of them, or if you're planning on reading them, maybe if I've convinced you to read them. They were all pretty good and definitely very different in terms of the genre, so I think there's something here for possibly everyone. Thank you for watching. If you like what you saw, please click like, and if you want to see more, click subscribe, and I'll see you all next time.